Pantry Studio production.
The following may contain strong language and deals with adult themes. Listener discretion is advised. The Appalachian Trail. It's one of America's most famous hiking paths. The massive journey crosses almost 2,200 miles and runs from Maine to Georgia. And it's about the longest hiking trail in the world. With that big of an influence on our culture and history, it's no wonder so many urban legends and scary stories are based around or on the trail. Most of the Appalachian Trail is deserted and isolated, cutting through mountains and thick woods. And when you've been hiking for a few days and haven't seen civilization in a while, well, your mind, well, it can start to play tricks on you. Or maybe it's no trick. Maybe there are really unexplained incidents and creatures waiting in those woods. Maybe. These are the Mountain Mysteries, and this is Episode 8, The Mountain Mysteries of the Appalachian Trail.
I will be the last to fall. I won't shed a tear for them to see. I won't have your name to call, 'cause I will be the last to fall.
There are over 1.9 billion square acres in the United States alone, and 24% of those are mountainous. The secrets that these regions hold are enormous. Reports of mysterious creatures, strange sightings and sounds, ghosts and murders, and those who have seemingly vanished. They are questions that need asking and answers worth finding. These are the Mountain Mysteries. Here's Chris Sloan.
Thank you to our Patreon supporters who make the cost of the production of the Mountain Mysteries much more bearable. You see, there's travel and production expenses and, of course, other needs that need to be paid, and we are independent. This show has no budget. Thank you to our newest Patreon supporter, Mildred Terry Lovelace, and we appreciate all of you more than you'll ever know. Our mission is simple: to always remember the people and their families, and if we can, try to help dry those tears. Case number 1. In 1988, a man was hiking along the trail when he underwent a horrible experience, perhaps more frightening than any ghostly encounter ever could be. He was hiking on the trail when he noticed a bright light coming from the forest next to him. Well, he didn't want to bother anyone, so he didn't bother to intrude and investigate, but he simply went somewhere else and set up camp close by. He awoke in the middle of the night to find a strange man standing over his hammock. Stunned, the man quickly fled and yelled to other unseen people that the hiker was awake. The hiker was terrified and quickly packed up to put as much distance between them and he as possible. A few days of non-stop hiking finally allowed the hiker to relax a little bit. But that night, he was sleeping in his hammock when he suddenly was cut down, wrapped up, and dragged away. He was severely beaten while the people shouted at one another as they were preparing something. Luckily, the hiker was able to cut through the hammock and escape. Even though he made it back to civilization, police inquiries into finding the people who kidnapped him came back with nothing and no conclusions. Number 2. A young couple was on the Appalachian Trail in the southern part of Virginia when something happened. It's something that they could not explain. While they were asleep in their tent one evening, they suddenly woke up to the sound of rustling and odd noises coming from outside. The man went out to see what was going on and managed to scare off some figures he saw creeping around. He almost chased after them, but then decided against it. The next night, they made camp with their backs to a cliff in order to be prepared. They both slept with guns next to them, and sure enough, the figures returned. Once the man announced they were armed, the figures retreated. The next day, the couple hustled to get out of there. But it was around midday when they rounded a corner and saw a silhouette of a figure standing in the distance, watching them from afar. They quickly were able to get off the trail and back to civilization, but the whole time they felt like they were being watched. Number 3. You know, children usually make everything creepier. And that's what makes this story even more scary. By the account, he was backpacking along the Appalachian Trail with a few people when something bizarre happened. He and his group awoke one morning to find their campsite surrounded by a thick mist. As they were packing up, they started to hear children's laughter coming from all around them. Once they were about done packing up, a group of children led by one parent walked out of the mists and started to walk past the group. The kids all asked the backpackers where they were going, and someone responded that they were hiking the Appalachian Trail. The kids started to laugh, and one of them said, "This isn't the Appalachian Trail," and kept walking. Throughout the day, the campers could hear the kids laughing all around them. Number 4. In May of 1972, a hiker claims to have seen a ghost from another era. The hiker was walking alone and noticed a heavy ground fog had started to surround him. He looked up and saw a person walking with a heavy coat and wide-brimmed hat. The man slowly staggered about, looking at the ground as if he was looking for something that he had lost. The man started walking toward the hiker, still looking down at the ground, so the hiker moved to avoid him. When they were close to each other, the man suddenly looked at the hiker, who instantly became afraid of the man's cloudy blue eyes that stared straight through him. He was also shocked to realize that the man's clothes all seemed to have come from a different time period. The hiker tried to say hello, but the man did not respond. After the hiker walked a little distance, he turned back only to discover the man had completely disappeared. Number 5. Oh, well, this one's an urban legend known throughout the country. The Pierce Pond Ghost. This take begins with a man who was hiking along Pierce Pond in Maine when he suddenly experienced a shock that he'll never forget. One night by the campfire, he was suddenly spotted by a figure walking a short distance away from his campsite. It was ghostly in appearance and looked like a woodsy outdoorsman type of person with what appeared to be fishing gear. It wasn't long before the figure faded into the night. The man didn't know what to think of it, but the next night, the ghostly figure returned. Only this time, it stopped to stare at the hiker. Well, he got the message. The hiker abandoned his camp and ran off into the forest. He hid behind a tree and waited until morning to return. Then he packed up his stuff and got out of there as quickly as he could. Number 6. Sometimes ghosts, well, they don't have to do much to be creepy. A young girl who was hiking with her parents experienced her first ghostly encounter after they stopped to camp for the night. Her father was fast asleep, but something was frightening her, and she couldn't keep her eyes shut. The next morning, she found her mother and asked if they could go for a walk. While out exploring, her mother suddenly stopped. The girl followed her gaze and saw a hazy apparition standing against a tree, not too far away. It was a man who looked calm and sad. After a few tense moments, the man just faded away, leaving the mother alone with her child. Number 7. In 1862, 3 major Civil War battles were fought over different passes on what is now the Maryland section of the Appalachian Trail. A great many lives were lost in the bloodshed and carnage. The death count was so high that it seemed some spirits still remain there to this day. Some people hiking over the passes report seeing ghost soldiers, odd campfires, and the sound of cannons blasting in the distance. On top of that, near the farm of a man named Daniel Wise, the bodies of 58 soldiers were tossed down an old well. This has caused reports of ghostly figures wandering around Wise's property. Number 8. The Spearfinger legend originates from the Cherokee Indians and has been used to scare children for years. She is a witch-like hag who is said to be able to take on the persona of a sweet old grandmother. She lurks around the highest peaks of the Smoky Mountains, keeping a special eye out for children who have wandered away from their parents. She likes to prey on their fear, telling them she will help find their parents, but slowly sings them to sleep. Once the child is sleeping soundly, Spearfinger will use her fingers and gouge out their liver and eat it in front of them. Number 9. Dudley Town, Connecticut has an ominous nickname, the Village of the Damned. It's called that because of its horrifying history. It was founded by descendants of Edmund Dudley, who was beheaded by Henry VIII for treason and was said to have cursed the land and a cursed family. And the Appalachian Trail? Oh, well, that runs right through it. Dudley Town was built in the 18th century and was abandoned in the 19th century, leaving only ruins in its wake. No one knows for sure why it was abandoned, but some people believe it's because residents who stayed there soon went insane or committed suicide after claiming they were possessed by demons. Nowadays, people report seeing strange lights and orbs surrounding the area. Number 10. Every year, about 24 hikers go missing on the Appalachian Trail, but a vast majority are found within just a couple of days. That's what makes the peculiar case of Geraldine Largay even more mysterious. The 66-year-old was halfway through hiking the trail in 2013 when she just vanished. On that day, she was planning on hiking 8 miles north to meet her husband at a rest stop. Throughout her entire journey, her husband met up with her at certain points to provide encouragement and supplies. But Largay never arrived. Her body was found in 2015, just 30 minutes from a road that led to town. Number 11. Reported crime is a rarity on the Appalachian Trail, which makes the story of Randall Lee Smith even more frightening. Back in the 80s, Smith pleaded guilty to murdering 2 hikers on the trail. He admitted to befriending and spending time with them on that trail. But then, in the middle of the night, he shot one of them and stabbed the other. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but ended up serving only half of his sentence. Once he got out, he tried to do the exact same thing. He befriended 2 fishermen on the trail and tried to kill them both. He shot them, but they both survived. Smith tried to flee the scene in a pickup truck, but crashed and succumbed to his injuries a few days later. Number 12. In 2011, a man took a week off of work to go hiking along the Appalachian Trail, but it turned into a frightening experience he would never forget. One night, he heard noises coming from outside his tent but didn't bother to go out to investigate. The following night, he was sitting around his fire when suddenly he was shocked to see a man standing near his firewood. His hands and body were badly burned and his face was smoking. The man was too afraid to even move, and the burned figure just stared at him with vacant eyes before walking away. This scared that man beyond all reason, and he quickly packed up to leave the area. While leaving the trail, he came across a recently burned down house with a sheriff around it. The sheriff told the man that 4 days prior, the same day that the hiker started his trip, an entire family burned alive in that house. Now, is that true? Probably not, as it's a story we've all heard before, but it shows how ghost stories have the ability to adapt to their surroundings. In this case, the Appalachian Trail served as the perfect backdrop. Number 13. One of the Appalachian Trail's most enduring urban legends is that of Audie Klein Powell. On top of Bluff Mountain, you can find a marker with information about 4-year-old Powell, who passed away in that exact spot over 100 years ago. But since then, hikers have reported seeing a little boy wandering the campgrounds looking for something, but never actually finding it. Nobody knows how Powell died, which has caused countless theories about him and why he still haunts the area. People have also gone out of their way to create entire narratives explaining what happened to Powell. But the actual truth? Well, that seems lost to history. Number 14. The White Mountains are one of the Appalachian Trail's most beautiful sections. But one spot in the heart of the mountains might cause some pause. It's called the Green Leaf Hut, and it's rumored to be inhabited by the spirit of Ben Campbell, the former hut master. The interesting thing about his tale is that he did not die on the trail. He passed away on a hike in Scotland. It's said he was supposed to be returning to the White Mountain, but died before he could. And now his spirit simply roams about. Those who have reported seeing him also report hearing footsteps at night. Log on to our Patreon page where you can vote on a poll. When you vote, message us your name. Let us know that you have selected your option in the poll of which of these stories you would like to hear a full episode on. Once that's done, you'll be entered to win a Mountain Mysteries prize pack, gift cards, maybe even cash. Don't forget to check us out on our Facebook page. It's The Mountain Mysteries. Our Patreon as well, which is available here in the show notes, and Instagram, and of course, our live video Thursday nights, which is the Mountain Mysteries Gatherings. We'd love to have you come by and join up with us as a part of that. I'm Chris Sloan for the Mountain Mysteries. Until we meet again, stay mysterious.
If you enjoy the Mountain Mysteries, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. That helps us so much. You can also help support the Mountain Mysteries by visiting our sponsors, whose links are below, or by donating at Patreon or the PayPal link shown in the notes. Patreon subscribers will receive early commercial-free episodes and more.
a Pantry Studio production.